We're going to learn how to edit individual sections of a photo, and you can see here by looking at my before and after that it is immensely different, and it's what makes your photo pop out and stand out from the crowd. So this before photo is edited, but it's only the whole photo which is edited, where the after photo has had portions of the photo edited, which is what we're going to learn to do now. So I'm just going to go back to the photo that I've edited. So this one here, bring it back to the full screen. And in order to work in different areas of this photo, we're going to be using the adjustment brush, which is this one here along the toolbar. So when I click on this, it gives me an area to work within. You can see it's circular on the photo. And again, to make it smaller or larger, I can use the square bracket keys. So the first thing I'm going to do is work with the paving area. So you can see it automatically kind of goes lighter based on where I've drawn. Now that's not going to be the end result because I'm going to modify those options, but at the moment I'm just selecting the area I want to change. So now I've highlighted both sets of paving. The options I have to change are in this white box here. So notice how, or grey with a white trim, notice how the box ends here. So I can only change things within this box for that area. So a simple thing would be immediately to change the temperature. So I can make the paving warmer or cooler without affecting any other part of the image. So I'm actually going to make it a bit warmer. Same with the tint. So you can change this around to see how that works. It can either make things more pink or more green. Same with the exposure. So I'm actually going to bring this down so I still have maybe a little bit of colour in the paving rather than it being really bright. So even something like this could be quite interesting. So as I said, the sliders here are your friends. You want to give each of them your attention, and you want to try out each one to see the effect it has on your photo, because these things are hard to predict without actually giving them a go. So you never know, you might come across something that is actually quite interesting that you never expected to actually achieve in the first place. One thing I will show you that's new is you can see here while I've got this area selected, there's this bit that says colour and it's got a cross through it. I can actually click on that and select a colour. So I'm going to go with more of the orange end for my paving. And you can see by clicking on that, it gives it now that tinge to the paving. If I cross that, I can modify that. So I can pull the saturation down so that it's not as intense. I can have it brighter if I want to. I might just bring it down a bit though. But now I've created this different tone in my photo. Once I'm done with that section, I just hit done. And then I click the paintbrush adjustment brush again to work on a different section of my photo. So what's really going to make this photo pop is when I work on my figure and the basketball. So let's do that now, and then we'll continue working in the background. So with the figure, I can either edit the whole thing or I can edit sections. So I'm going to edit sections. So for example, if I paint on the shirt, okay, and again, I can then come over and modify the shirt. So I can make it cooler, warmer. I kind of want it to stay reasonably white with a bit of shadow, so I'm not really going to change too much there. Exposure, again, I don't want to get rid of the folds in the fabric. I might bump out the contrast a little bit. Highlights, maybe bring some of those down so I can see more folds like that. That's a bit more effective. Shadows, again, I can bring down to see more folds. So there's a lot that you can do to make your photo, or your focal point of your photo, have a lot more interest in it. Saturation of colour is not really going to affect it because I've left it white. And again, I click done. Something as simple as the pants here, which at the moment, you know, they're dark grey, they don't stand out, nothing like that. What I want to do is change the colour of them. So I'm going to just make sure, hang on, just hit done. I just want to make sure that I've only got the area selected with the pants. So I paint on that. Immediately I'm going to bring up the exposure to make it lighter. And you can see that. Obviously I don't want to go too far, but maybe to there. And again, things like highlights, shadows, clarity to pick up some of the texture. I can play with these until I'm happy with the way that it looks. And of course the colour. So at the moment, again, I can change this simply by going to my colour selection. That's one way to kind of give it a different kind of tinge. Obviously, it's not going to change it to a bright orange because the pants were already coloured, so it's not going to eliminate it totally. If you want to change it more drastically, what you need to do is actually hit done and go down to the HSL where you can hit your target, go on the blue and click and drag. So I can change them to green. You'll notice that my sky kind of changes a little bit too because they've got similar colours. So you have to be a bit careful in that sense. But I could leave them as that kind of blue. Now my focal point here is the orange basketball. So I really want to bring more attention to that. So I'm just going to use the adjustment brush again to just paint over that section. And I'm going to bring up the exposure, make it lighter, and see how already that's starting to pop out from my page. Things like the tint, if I make it warmer, it looks more orange. If I make it cooler, it looks more purpley. So again, I can affect the colour of the ball. I quite like that. It almost looks a bit like a cartoon. So I might actually leave that as the colour. I can bump down the saturation if I think it's too intense. I might do that just a little bit. The last thing I want to do, which doesn't quite add up with my person here, is of course the skin. So the legs and the arms. So I'm going to paint over those again with the adjustment brush and bring up the exposure. So bump that up. And now I'll be able to see more of the skin tone. I don't want to bump it up too high because it will make it look a bit grainy. But I can change the shadows to also help with that. So to lift them a little bit. So something like this. I'm now pretty happy with the way my focal point is looking. If I wanted to make this person glow or have a soft glow behind them, I could easily play around with one of the filters, so the radial filter here. I could draw a shape and move that shape where I want it to be. And if I wanted this to have a certain glow around it, I could change the exposure, okay, make it lighter. You can see it starts to get a bit of a glow around the edges. The other thing I could do if I wanted to make something glow is to use the adjustment brush and paint around the person and then change the exposure. So either way, you can see I've got a little bit of a glow around them. I'm not going to keep that, so I'm just going to press Command Z to undo because I just want to keep it this way. Last thing I'm going to do is work on my background. So with the adjustment brush, I'm going to quickly work back into this building because at the moment it's not really matching anything in my photo. The colour's a bit off. So I'm going to see if I can try and make it match the paving to be a bit more of that pinky orangey tone. So again, I'm going to go down to the colour and I'm going to go to that pink orange tone. Hit that. And then this is where I might need to adjust some things up here to actually get that tone showing. So the exposure, I might need to bring down the highlights because that's what is making that building so light. And I can see there's a little bit of that green in there. So I just have to be a little bit careful with some of my sliders not to make that too powerful. So it looks like it's tying in now with my paving without looking too weird. So I'm quite happy with the way that is. Last final thing, again, just with the adjustment brush, if I edit this locker bay shelter, again, just by hovering over, and I want to make this more dark. So I can work with the shadows to increase that, bring down exposure even. I can bring up highlights so just that I can see this glimmer and shine. And that is my finished edited photo. So when you compare this now to the original, you can see the big difference. And this is what is going to get you higher marks in photography. The care you take to look at each individual photo and edit it the way that I have is what we want you to be able to do. So give this a go now. Rewind and pause this video if need be, but try and edit your photos now to this standard.